So I'm sure you've had this experience in which something, you thought that you wanted something. You thought you wanted something to turn out a particular way, whatever that is. Many, you've had this many times. So I'm just inviting you to reflect and consider that this has happened. You think, for example, that you want a particular person to love you and adore you, and they don't. And you're heartbroken, and you can't see any good happening in your life because this person is not showing you the affection that you want, or you want a particular house or particular job or particular this, that, or the other, and it just doesn't work out. And so you are upset about this for some amount of time. And then well, as they say, hindsight is 2020. So if you consider then, from your perspective now, where it's 1 year or 5 years or 20 years or 50 years down the line, you look back and you say, oh, thank goodness that didn't work out, right? Because imagine if you'd been saddled with that, right? That person who you think back now, oh my goodness, so glad that they didn't want me. Or thank goodness that I don't have that house and that mortgage payment in this location I don't want to be, or whatever the case may be. So we can see that. I hope you can see that with some things, right? But then notice we tend to have this double standard where we think, well, some things I can see that's true. I have poor judgment on some things. I'll grant that that's true. Yes, but but with everything else, I know for sure how it should be. And I know for sure that shouldn't be like this, that I know. It's sure, I was wrong about that person. I was wrong about that house. I was wrong about that career. I was wrong about that location. I was wrong about all these things. Yes, I admit. But I know for sure I shouldn't be feeling this way. I know for sure that I shouldn't have this situation and these circumstances. I know for sure this shouldn't be. So I'm inviting you to notice this. And then you look and see there's a whole armory there to back this up, to justify this view that I'm right when it comes to these things. And if you ask yourself this question, well, on what basis? How do I know that this is so? How do I know that I'm right about this? And you'll first and foremost, the answer is, well, it's obvious. I just know. And if you probe a little bit more, then what starts to happen? So I'm inviting you to do so. You probe and find out what happens. If you really, well, how do I know that I shouldn't feel this way? And you said, well, it's just obvious. Everybody knows that I shouldn't feel this way. It's awful. Nobody should feel this way. It's awful. Anger, depression, anxiety. This is bad. It's wrong. Everybody agrees. Everybody knows. It's just, and then, if If you probe a little bit more, then it starts getting agitated and it starts responding with more agitation, a little bit more aggression and violence. How dare you? What are you, crazy? What's wrong with you? What do you want? You want me to be depressed? You want me to be angry? Everybody knows it's not how it's supposed to be. It's just natural that it shouldn't be that way. And so, you know, you're the insane one questioning this. But you see, none of that is necessary. That's all a front. It's a smokescreen. So when we allow ourselves to get distracted by that, on the surface, it seems rational, a rational response, but it's anything but, because if it's, there's no reason why, if it's true, there's no reason that it can't be scrutinized. It's only when something is false that we need this kind of drama to distract us, because then we won't look. And so there's a powerful, although not that powerful, but somewhat powerful, what do we call this, habit of maintaining the status quo. And you see over time what happens. You just look at your own experience and you see over time, we tend to become increasingly conservative in a particular way, not in the healthy way, but in a distorted way, based on fear, where we say it just has to, we can't have any kind of change. We can't have we can't question anything, nothing. It all has to just be this way because that's the way it has to be. And if anybody questions it, it's going to, I'll raise hell. I'll throw a tantrum, because everybody just knows that this is how it has to be, because we can't be depressed. We can't have these experiences. We can't feel this way. We can't allow this kind of thing. These things can't be happening. We can't have pain. We can't have loss. Can't experience fear. None of these things are allowed. Okay, so again, recall the times when you were wrong. And that, well, it works both ways, right? Sometimes you were wrong and you got it. That happens. And then you are settled with it, and then you got to deal with it. For better or for worse. So there's that. But then blessedly, really blessedly, most of them, a good portion of the time at least, we're wrong, and it doesn't work out the way that we think that it should. So that's great. So we can reflect and see these experiences in our lives where we've been wrong, and either we got it or we didn't. And we say, if we got it, we say, oh no, look at, I'm 20 years later and I'm still paying for it, right? I'm still dealing with this, still have this mess that I'm trying to sort out from this impulsive, stupid decision that I made. Or we can say, oh, what a blessing that it didn't work out. I thought it was the end of the world because this, I thought it had to be a certain way and it wasn't that way. But what a blessing. And actually, we see this, not only that, but we see this with things that are not just about getting, but actually about when something happens, the circumstances of our lives, pain, suffering, accidents, injury, depression, anxiety. We see that when we have a better perspective, in retrospect, we can say, what a blessing this was. Now, do we say, I want that again? No, not necessarily. But we say, oh, wow, what a blessing. I learned something of great importance, great value. That is a blessing in my life and in the lives of my loved ones because of this wisdom that was gained through these experiences. Now, I wouldn't have chosen these experiences, so I would have actually rejected, you see, the knowledge, the wisdom that has been gained, in a sense, because I was blind and I had the wrong idea. I thought this experience has to be rejected. It's just bad and everybody knows. But in hindsight, I can recognize, wow, what a enormous blessing this has been. Without this, I would have been just as lost as I ever was and just as miserable as I ever was. But through this experience, something of great value has been gained. So hopefully you can recognize these experiences in your life. I mean, if not, then I don't know. I guess that, well, if not, you wouldn't still be here. I don't suppose. So now you probably see where I'm going with this. It's not like a big surprise, but take a look and see again. Now, the insistence that we hold tight to, this shouldn't be. I know that it shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be having this experience. I shouldn't be experiencing this fear, this anxiety, this worry, this stress, this whatever. And everybody knows that that's just true. I mean, that's the point of life, isn't it? To avoid these unpleasant experiences. Doesn't everybody know that? Isn't that common knowledge? You see, that's how we just keep on going. We say, well, everybody knows. Everybody knows. But now look and see this everybody who knows, how happy are they? Now, of course, most people are frauds. Sorry. But it's true. We can include ourselves in that. I mean, it's not like, what do they say? When you point the finger, you got three pointing back at you. So, see, three pointing back. So I'll include myself in that. I'm a fraud. Okay. So, for better or for worse, you're in company. I don't know if it's good company or bad company, but we're all in the same boat. It's just the state we find ourselves in, that we are frauds, and we are defrauding ourselves first and foremost. Most people don't know that they're frauds. It's not an intentional thing. Nobody sets out, well, I'm sure somebody does, but few people set out, I don't imagine, at least, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a fraud in this lifetime. I'm going to be a big time fraud. Of course not. But if you look, you'll see that, people, how many times have people said, how are you? And you say, I'm fine. And you were anything but fine. You're not fine in the least. You just want to break down and sob, but you can't bring yourself to do it. So, it's common every day. We just are frauds. There's a big, enormous mismatch between our subjective experience and what we project. This idea of fake it to make it until you make it. This is just it's beaten into us. We don't even recognize it, but that's what we're doing. And it's understandable. We We were, many of us as school children were teased and bullied for God knows what. But we imagined that the solution is, well, we got to toughen up. So most people are frauds. But you know the truth of it because you know your own experience and you know those who you're intimate with, those who you see, you know, your children, your spouse, your parents, your closest friends, those people who confide in you or who just can't keep up the masquerade fully in your presence. You see, you know that what they project and what they experience is different, right? So you can see that. You see the person in their, you know, in their vulnerable state, and you see they're trembling and afraid and anxious and worried and insecure and all of these things. And then you see, you know, they dress up and put their, you know, face on and they go out there and somebody says, how you doing? And they say, I'm doing great. So if we know that that's true, which we hopefully do because we're honest people, then why should we imagine really that there are so many exceptions to that? So these people who are out there telling us, you know, I'm a big success, be like me, follow me. Why are we going to believe them? But we do. But we're fools to do so. So the invitation here is so different. I mean, really different, because here the invitation is to honesty. It's not to be a better version of yourself, because a better version of yourself, that's what we keep thinking we want. You see, that's why what we keep on just exhausting ourselves in just taking one more false step after another. We just, I'm almost there. I got to get it. I got to get this fake prize, the better self. And what we keep on doing that because we're looking around and there are people also who are, you know, we're like all in the desert together, but you know, everybody's dying of thirst and starvation. Everybody's crawling and dehydrated. And the, you know, this person over here who's in the same state as you, but they wink and they say, we're almost there, doing great. And so you don't want to let down the guard and say, hey, you know, actually, I'm not doing so well. And, you know, to be honest, you don't look so great either. I think we're in a pretty bad situation. So it's a rare thing. But then again, you look and see how many people do you know? And the answer is zero. Maybe one, because it does happen, but for most people it's zero. How many people do you know who are genuinely, truly content, satisfied, happy, at peace, regardless of the circumstances? I'm not talking about temporary. I'm not talking about because somebody has, you know, they're on top of the heap and they've got $1 million in the bank and they're traveling and whatever. I mean, how many people do you know, regardless of the circumstances, whether they have $1 million or they've got $0, whether they've got their dream relationship or they've got people who hate them, regardless of whether they're, you know, any, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of any of that, how many people do you know who are truly happy? And the answer is zero, for with very rare exception. Because most people, as I say, they're just faking it. And they defraud themselves first and foremost, as long as they can. And, but you, I mean, clearly, anybody who would be in here, okay, you are not able to fake it any longer. If you ever were able to fake it, you're definitely not able to fake it now. At least not. Well, okay, a little bit, but not in the same way. Not so much to yourself. You kind of know now. Now, all these strategies that I have for how I'm going to get ahead, how I'm going to be on top of the heap, how I'm going to make $1 million and then I'll be happy, or how I'm going to fix this thing and then I'm going to be happy. How if I can only just get rid of the pain, I'll be happy. If I can just get rid of the depression, you see, it's like we just objectify everything and we're just going to do something about it. It's extreme materialism. This is the world most of us inhabit, where everything's just an object. But when you wake up a little bit, you realize, wait, objects are not satisfying. I'm not an object. You have to realize that, right? Just notice I'm not an object. When I say I mean you, we are. It's an invitation to look for yourself, to see, who am I? Who is this one? Is it an object? In the materialist world, if you Google who am I, it will tell you you're an object, you're a body, you're a bundle of nerves, your thoughts. So these are what we're told we are. But you look and see for yourself right now, who are you really? And you don't have to know the answer in thought. You don't have to have something you could write down on well, I wouldn't write it down anymore because nobody writes, but you wouldn't tell it to Siri to enter into the form for you. It's who you are is known directly, but it can't be objectified. It can't be put in words. It's who you are is formless. Who you are is the knower, the observer, the one who is aware. All the experience is your experience. You're the experiencer, right? I mean, it's just obvious. You don't know, you can't say anything about that. You can't say who that experiencer is as some entity, because it's formless. It doesn't have a definition. It's not something separate. So we make this mistake of believing in materialism, and then we're thinking, oh, I just have to do something, achieve something, get rid of something, right? So I have problems. Those problems are objects. We name them: pain, depression, anxiety, etc., trauma, whatever. 10 years from now, there'll be another buzzword, and then, on and on and on. So the names change. But if we keep looking out there at the names, then we're just going to keep spinning around and around, but we never get to the core of it. And the core of it is you. Because if you get rid of depression, or you get rid of anxiety, these objects, these imaginary objects, guess what? That's all, that's easy peasy. Actually, you want to be rid of it, just get rid of it. Stop imagining that it's there, and it's not there anymore. But guess what? The underlying process that is expressing and appearing as that continues, because that's not an object, it's a process. So then we say, well, I have to change the process. Yeah, sort of. I won't deny that, but you can't. Who's going to change the process? The process? See, we have to get clear on who am I? I am not an object. I am not even the process, right? You're aware of the process. The process is occurring in you, as you, but you're not limited to that. You're not defined by that. So how does the process change? This is the, $1 million question, I guess. Or maybe the $1 million question is, what the hell are you even talking about? But you see, all this is pointing. You can, so I understand it can be perceived as frustrating, challenging, antagonistic, many things, but it's really, it's like a reverse engineering. We have to see, so the process changes through awareness of the process. So we notice, okay, what am I doing? You see, you have to become aware of what you're doing. So that's what's being pointed out. So you can see, okay, I'm defrauding myself, I'm lying to myself, I'm believing others who are lying, and we're all just egging one another on. Let's keep going. We're almost there. We're going to make it. Look at me. I'm making it. How you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Or if you don't want to say I'm doing great, I'm fine. I'm okay. How you doing? Good. Maybe this is just an American thing, but holy cow. All the Americans, I hope you know, you can relate to this, is because it's like, this is how the American culture works. Nobody's going to admit, if you go into a store, I know nobody does that anymore, but if you go and you see somebody, I know nobody does that either, but if you remember 3 years ago when you saw people and you'd say, how you doing? And say, I'm fine. How are you? Oh, I'm all right. Good, good. Glad to hear it. But of course, it's not true, right? Because you're there's this, you got a long list of problems, or maybe a short list of problems, but you've got problems. But you say, well, I don't want to burden them with my problems. But you see, and I'm not suggesting you need to. I'm just pointing out what's happening. It's not, we don't even need to change it so much as just be aware of it. By being aware of it, the dysfunction starts to change on its own. It dissolves, because we can only do harm to ourselves so long as we're allowing ourselves to not recognize it. We call it by other names and we say, oh, I'm not harming myself. I'm a victim. I'm a victim of circumstance. I'm a victim of life. Which brings us back around again. You see, when I insist that I'm a victim, what am I going to perceive? That I'm being victimized. So everything that's happening shouldn't be happening. In this materialist model, we are told that that's crazy. It's irrelevant anyway. At best it's irrelevant, and at worst it's insane. So, it's just an objective reality. This is just stuff that's happening, and of course you're victimized by it. So sign our petition so that we can let the rulers know that we are serious and we want it to be different. But then you look through history, how many revolutions have there been? How many petitions have there been? How many changes of leadership have there been? And still, fundamentally, same thing is happening. So if we're serious about wanting authentic change, then we have to risk everything and tell the truth. We have to really get clear and see, what am I doing? Well, I'm perceiving myself as an object who is victimized. Now, as soon as I do that, you have to look for yourself right now. You see that the instant that you accept that that is true, which is what all of us are doing most of the time. Okay, the instant that you accept that that is true, then you see everything through that lens, and you've uh, imagined that you are now powerless, or at least that your power is greatly diminished because you said the power is over there, it's in the oppressor. And now who is the oppressor? Well, it's the object, right? That object that's always changing. It's either that political party or this employer or this spouse or this neighbor or this physical ailment or this mental emotional ailment or a spiritual ailment. There's always something, and that's the object du jour that is the oppressor. And we can imagine that the oppressor is anything, but see, it's whether it's a gross level object or a subtle object, they're all objects, and they're all disempowering, because where does that power come from? Here, the one power. And then we splinter off, not really, but in our imagination, which is where we're living, we splinter that off, and now it's over there. It's that thing. And now I'm not only is the power over there, but the little power that I still imagine that I hold is squandered in resistance to that depression, that political party, that whatever. Or even the weather, you see. I mean, how many times are we oppressed by the weather? I mean, it's anything. We will find anything to project as the oppressor to support this underlying fundamental misperception of victimization. So I am a victim, I am separate, I have no power, or I have small power in comparison to the great power of the oppressor. So just see, this is a state that most of us find ourselves in. And then we look out there at our fellow travelers in this desert who are starving and dehydrated, and we say, how are you? And they say, oh, I'm great, I'm fine. And we say, oh, well, I guess it's just me then. I better keep that secret. It would be shameful. I don't want that. I don't want other people to know, because I know what happened in the past when I showed any sign of weakness or vulnerability or honesty or authenticity or love or compassion. Well, they were brutal. So I can't allow that again. Okay. So hopefully you can see this is a state that we find ourselves in, and then we're wanting to know, how do I bring about authentic change? And as I'm saying, we have to, the step that we miss, because we're so in this culture, we're so fixated on, just give me a technique. Just tell me the steps. Why are you wasting my time with all this other nonsense? Just get to the point. So this is the error that we make, is just, enough of this nonsense, fluffy stuff. Just tell me, what do I do? I need, is it 3 steps, 5 steps? Just break it down for me. I'm a smart person. I can do it. I just need you to tell me what to do. Well, I can tell you what to do, but it won't help you, because all the doing in the world, and this should be obvious, because all you have to do is see that there's an enormous amount of doing that's already been done, and it hasn't helped. So, I mean, even we ourselves individually have done an enormous amount of doing, and it hasn't helped. But then you look collectively at the amount of doing that's been done, it's mind-boggling, and it hasn't worked. So the doing is not actually what we want. We think that's what we want, but it comes back to this fundamental error, which is, I think that I am a victim and I just need the right technique in order to overcome my oppressor, and then all will be well. But we are just wrong through and through. We don't know anything. We misunderstand everything. And so now here's the punchline. Okay, it's good news, but I understand very challenging to accept. So I won't deny that. But it is this, that there is an unthinkable supreme perfection that is already the case, and that can be nothing other than. Now, notice that instantly, if you allow it, that just completely wipes out everything that, for the last 40 minutes, everything that's come out of this mouth, because you see, in an instant, when that's accepted, there's this revelation. Oh, there's no problem. There's no victim. There's there's nothing needs to be done. There's no anything. It's all fine. It's all perfect. This is so perfect. Okay, so this is we have to recognize the supreme perfection, or even if not recognize, accept the supreme perfection. Now, how do we go about that? Well, as we started, looking today, we see we have to call into question the false supremacy of the mind, which, as I've said, over time particularly develops this false, unhealthy conservatism, where it just works very hard and aggressively to maintain status quo, despite the fact that the status quo is terrible. But any change is a threat, and so has to be avoided. So, but we don't see it that way. We see it as, how dare you make such an accusation? That you don't know me at all. This is what the mind says. This doesn't apply to me. I'm working really hard. Look at how all these things, and come up with a list of all the things that it's done. I've taken 20 dozen self-improvement classes, and I've done hypnotherapy, and I've meditated. I've done 5 different types of meditation, and they're all really good types of meditation. Everybody agrees, everybody knows they're really good, get really good results. They've been studied even at Harvard. And it just goes to town justifying its position. But see what it's doing? It's just digging its heels in, and it's saying no change. And here's why no change: because I've already got it all figured out. So we want to call that into question. Okay, and that's what I've been inviting us all to look at and see. Wait a second now. The mind says that it's got it all figured out. Of course, it likes to have it both ways. So as soon as I say the mind's got it all figured out, it says, well, wait, hold on now, wait a second. Haven't figured it all out. In fact, I don't know that much at all. In fact, maybe I don't know anything at all. Ha ha, look at me. So it's slippery. But you just see there again, it's saying, well, I already know that. I already know that I don't know. That's so tell me something I don't already know, it says. But you can't, because it won't receive it. So as long as we allow ourselves to be taken in by those lies, there's no hope. It's just desperate. It's horrible. Which is why, emphasize this negative so much. It's just about being honest. If we don't tell the truth, then we'll just keep on lying to ourselves and believing it, and feeling very justified and very victimized. And we'll say, it's just not fair. Look at those other people over there. They seem to be getting good results, and they haven't done nearly as much as I've done. Look at, and again, it goes into its list of everything that it's done. I've been working really hard for 35 years. Not a day has gone by that I don't even watch TV. I don't, I don't read any kind of frivolous books. I only read very serious books that are practical, that are helping me. And I take courses and I do coaching sessions and I do all these things so that I can get better and I can get over this thing and finally defeat my oppressor, you see. So we want to see this. We want to see this is, and what an enormous waste it is. So is so deeply painful. We want to see it, and in the seeing of it, it's exposed. It's like in the, the Wizard of Oz, when the man behind the curtain is exposed. And before that moment, we were terrified. The all, the all-powerful Oz. Oh, let me cower before you. But in an instant, it's revealed, and from that moment on, even though it's like, okay, there's all this, smoke and big drama going on, and I'm a little, a little scared. I'm a little, but wait a second. I see the man over there. I see what's happening. So it can't have the same effect from that point forward. It all starts to unravel. That's what we have to see, that this false supremacy of the mind is false, that it just lies, and it will keep on lying to maintain. Why? Fear. It's a very powerful motivator. But the pain you have to tell the truth about this. The pain is greater than the fear at this point, right? I mean, aren't there days when you contemplated maybe death would not be so bad? The pain is greater than the fear. So this is very good, but we have to be intelligent about it. So now we see, okay, the pain is greater than the fear. So I can't allow myself to be motivated by the fear, because I see where that's going. That's just sucking the life out of life. So let me be really honest now. Let me see what's going on. I see, okay, the mind just keeps insisting that I know everything and I've got it all figured out, and it's not safe, and I can't, and I'm I'm at a dead end, and there's no way left out, but I've tried everything. Woe is me. And meanwhile, you just have to look a little bit to the side and then see that that's all just not true. That actually, what is really true is that there is this supreme perfection. It's completely unavoidable. There's no way we can screw it up. None. No possibility. The only thing that we can do that it doesn't screw it up, but it's like putting the brakes on, greatly delays the realization. And that is by continuing to invest in these same dysfunctional patterns of denial and deception and so forth. So we want to just see, okay, so many times I've been wrong. I thought I was right, but it turned out I was wrong. Then you start to really look more clearly right now and let that open up and start to realize the truth of it, which is not, you haven't been wrong just a little bit. You've been wrong a lot. And you really have to see this. You have to see, you've just been wrong. I have been wrong. We've all been wrong. We're just wrong about, we don't have to say all of it, although that I would say that's true, but let's just say we're wrong about, could we admit we're wrong about more than half of it? That's a hard one, I know. Some people really won't admit that. Probably not you though. Because again, you wouldn't be here if you didn't have that kind of honesty already. It just needs to be encouraged. So look and see the truth of it, which is I have been wrong about it, more than half of it. At least 51% I've been wrong about. And then you look more carefully right now and see, Maybe I've been wrong about even more of it than I thought. Really, if I really tell the truth, I just have been wrong. I didn't know what was good for me, and I didn't know what was bad for me. I didn't know the value of anything. I didn't know what I really wanted. I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going or why. Can you see the truth of that? That you've just sort of been stumbling, but all the while, the mind has been insisting, no, I've got it. I've got it figured out. I know what I'm doing. I know what the point of life is. Everybody knows the point of life. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows the point of life. It's pleasure, avoiding pain, getting stuff, being comfortable. That's the point of life, isn't it? And you might say, well, I'm sophisticated and I know that's not true, but actually tell the truth about it. That's what's been running the show. So you've been wrong. It's okay. It's good to admit it. It's the first step. So I've been wrong. I thought I knew what I wanted, but actually I didn't want any of the things that I thought I wanted. And in fact, now that I got some of those things, I realized I didn't even want much of those things and kind of want not to have those things. But then if you work to get rid of those things, then you realize, well, I didn't really want to get rid of them either. You see, because it's not about the things. It's not, there I am again, pointing, what, three fingers pointing back at me. But it's not about the things. We just keep thinking it's about the things. We keep thinking it's about all these things, but it's not about those things. It's not about that at all. Because none of those things, and I'm talking about the gross level and subtle level, anything that can be named. So feelings, states, emotions included. Getting rid of things is not going to give me what I really want. You have to see that. So now, again, the mind gets impatient. It says, but give me what do I do? I don't feel like this is helping. What do I do? How do I get there? How do I, so, time's running out. You gotta give me the answer. Shh. You got to trust that this is the answer. It's really is the answer. It's not the answer that you're going to sink your teeth into and then you're going to use it as a weapon against your oppressor to finally be victorious, because you got to see that that's completely wrong. Again, it's to start to recognize the truth of this supreme perfection that is unavoidable, inescapable, and inalienable. Is whatever other in or un things you want to apply to it, that's also true. It's unconditional. It's absolutely perfect and it cannot be other than that. So what does this tell us? Okay, to be fair, okay, give you something to do. Mine's like, what do I do? So what can be done is to continue to tell the truth, which is to see this pattern that there's a process. Remember I said it's a process. So there's a process. It's not about the objects. What's really bugging us, what's really disturbing us is not the objects. So we could rearrange the objects all we want. We could trade in depression for anything else, whether you think it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. That won't solve the problem. What's bugging us is this process. So then we think, well, now I got to change the process. Yes and no. If you try to change the process, you're trying to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It won't work. And it'll just make it worse. You'll get it more entrenched. But the process changes through correctly recognizing who you are and what the nature of reality is. This doesn't make any sense to the mind, though. I get it. I understand. The mind says, but that's not going to help me now. I need some real solutions to my real problems. But we keep having to tell the truth, which is all of the real solutions to all my real problems, and there have been plenty of them, didn't work. It's like chasing after a mirage. It looks like water, but it's not water, and you'll never reach it. So that's all these so-called real solutions to the real problems. And I won't not deny that there are, we could have more desirable rearrangements of circumstances. So we don't have to it's not an either or, but it's, at the very least, we need to tell the truth or we'll never be satisfied, because we might rearrange things to have the most desirable arrangement of objects possible, and yet we still won't be satisfied. We'll still be in pain. That pain will be like agony. So it's about the seeing. It's about the seeing. The more we see the process, the more that it resolves itself, because there is an intelligence. And this gets like super woo, I guess, but nonetheless is obvious. Though I know people will deny it. I know people do deny it, and they've written books on it, and they, have clubs and conferences, and you can find them on YouTube. Like there is no intelligence, there is no order, there is nothing. So it's just an absolute void, and that's it. And if you had, it's just chance. Well, sorry to break it to you, but there's an intelligence to recognize an order or a pattern, even if there is no order or pattern, you see. And you can't deny that you recognize order and pattern. So there's an intelligence, and that intelligence is functioning. That's, I mean, to any, I would say, sane person, that's obvious, because you see, it's still like there's communication happening, there's a recognition occurring, there's life appearing. All of this is happening. It's not just chaos. There's an order, there's an intelligence. And that is clearly bigger than my idea of myself. So my idea of myself is small. It's what I perceive as victimized. And in this materialist view, I am the small victim being oppressed and victimized by all these other greater objects, the bosses and the weather and the planets and the feelings and so forth. But we just want to keep telling the truth. In the direct experience right now, you just notice there is intelligence, there is recognition, and I am. You see, what a this most fundamental thing, that I am. And we trivialize it and dismiss it and overlook it. Yeah, whatever, who cares? I am, but I am depressed. And that's the real problem. Well, hold on a second. Are we so sure? Because if I was wrong about all those other things, and I thought I was right, why am I so certain that I'm right about this? And then we come right back around again. Well, everybody knows. And what, you want me to be depressed? What's wrong with you? But that's just that's the either or, black and white, dualistic reactivity of the mind trying to maintain the status quo. But the real truth is that this agony, this despair, this drive that we call by all these other names right? We call it depression, anxiety, frustration, discouragement, and so forth. But this is none other. Now you have to look to see the truth of this. So look right now, and you'll maybe glimpse it. It is none other than the perfection. It is that order. It is that intelligence, and it is here now. And it is I am. If you're really just honest for a moment, you can't deny that I am. And if you're really honest, you can't deny I am this wholeness. I am this perfection. I am this supreme reality. And that this is none other. It's not separate from what I've been calling the problem. I've been calling it that. But what is it? It's just this movement. You see, it's like a flower blossoming. Now, if you stop it at any one point, you might say, what is this? This seems tense. This seems really bad. I'm not sure. This is pretty, I don't know. What is this? You can tell all kinds of stories about it. Oh, it shouldn't be like this at all. This is not good at all. It shouldn't be like this. But that's because you've taken it out of context and you've objectified it. But what's actually happening is an expression. And you can't have that expression without this moment. This is the truth that you can recognize for yourself, that this moment right now, when you stop taking it out of context and you just open to the whole, which is I am now, then there is a recognition that I am wholeness. I am complete. I am the totality. I am the all the processes fully expressed. So we're putting we're recognizing that we never were bound by time. This notion that I'm bound by time sets, creates all this kind of suffering, because then we say, well, look, I am bound by time in this moment. This seems really bad. Seems really, really bad. But we don't have eyes to see when we wrongly imagine ourselves in that way. So then we, right back to where we started, we are convinced that this shouldn't be, and I've got it all figured out, and I know, and everybody knows that this shouldn't be. But when we see in the bigger perspective, we recognize that there is the truth of what's being pointed to, which is that there is a supreme perfection that is unavoidable, and that doesn't deny the momentary apprehension or anxiety or fear or whatever. But without denying it, it also is, it's transcendent, it's larger than. It's like the whole expression of the flower is larger than that one photograph of that one instant. So this, if we can catch a glimpse of this supreme perfection, which is available now. So I'm inviting you just to notice it. And you might say, well, I don't know how to do that. So the good clue is, don't give attention to that, because that's just the mind working hard to maintain the status quo. It says, whoa, don't look over there at supreme perfection. Look over here at doubt. I don't know how to do that. If you keep looking over there at the doubt, then you miss the supreme perfection. So the doubt comes and you just say, yeah. and see what the context in which the doubt arises. See, the doubt comes and then it goes. So we want to glimpse this supreme perfection and notice that this supreme perfection is I am. This is now. It's not something that is, it's not a experience per se. It's not something that's going to be gotten in the future. It's not something that was had in the past. It's just this right now. And it's transcendent of any ideas of yourself. So those ideas can come and go. They do come and go. So it doesn't matter if they come and go. You can have objections, doubts. You can have feelings and all the rest of that. That's all fine. This is not a problem. That's coming and going in this context. But you just for an instant want to recognize the context that's always here. It's wide open. And you can recognize, at least for an instant, before the next thought, the perfection of it. And I've been calling this, we can call it by any name, but I've been calling it unconditional peace. And then we can have a practical application. Step one is, of course, this glimpsing, the recognition, so that if you don't do that, nothing else is of any value. So that's the essential step, just to have this glimpse. And it's not difficult. It's the easiest thing. Just for one instant, don't make any effort. Don't grasp at the next thought. Don't turn to the next doubt. Just for an instant, just remain. Like there's between each grasping, there's an openness. Just remain with this openness just for half a second and notice it. And notice that I am this openness. So this is step one. And then step two is to imagine this openness, this unconditional peace expressing as my mind, my body, my emotions, my relationships. And of course, we can't really imagine that, but that provokes whatever the limitations are, whatever we habitually believe is more true. And all we want to do is just that. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to argue with it. You don't need to see anything particular. You don't need to have a particular experience. You don't need anything other than just to be willing to participate. Just be open to it. So you just, for a moment, again, just make no effort and just notice this one instantaneous glimpse of this supreme perfection, wide open wholeness, unconditional peace. And then imagine this unconditional peace expressing as your body, your mind, your emotions, your relationships. And whatever that provokes is absolutely perfect and fine. Just notice it. That's all. Whatever you notice, doesn't matter. You might like it, you might not like it. It might seem like something, it might seem like nothing. You might think you're doing it, you might think you're not doing it. Just your willingness to participate, you'll see then what's happening is that you're recognizing bit by bit that this supreme perfection is always here. It's the seeing. You are this seeing. You are this recognizing. You are this awareness. And you don't need to turn that into some idea. You don't need to turn it into an experience. You don't need to make that something that you can say, aha, I'm making progress. You just don't do anything with it. You just notice that what I'm pointing to is happening, that just without any effort, bit by bit, it just starts to become clearer that, hey, yes, there's something here that I am even in the absence of all of that, and that this is true. It's always here. It's reliable. And it is supreme in the sense that it doesn't come and go. Everything else comes and goes. Out of habit, I fixate on the things that come and go, all the objects. I try to make that real and solid, and I try to make myself invested in that, and it creates all kinds of misery. And now I'm seeing bit by bit that this pure light of awareness is supreme and continuous, and as I allow it to shine upon all seeming objects and all processes equally, they're illumined, and I become consciously aware of them without force. You can't force it. You just still will notice that it just starts to happen. You just start to consciously, subtly, or not so subtly, become aware of the objects and the processes, the patterns that you were mistaking for reality. And as that happens bit by bit, day by day, they no longer seem to have the kind of hold, because you're recognizing the truth of who you are and the reality of reality, instead of the inversion and distortion that was mistaken for reality up to now. So that's all for the formal portion today. For those who are here live, if you'd like, we can stay on for the Q&A. So I'll end this recording now.